Hello and welcome to Chelsea. This is our neighbor, Tottenham Hotspur. They are pain in our assholes. We get Jose Mourinho, they must get Jose Mourinho. We get Antonio Conte, they must get Antonio Conte. We get a bunch of good players they cannot afford. Great success. What? We're playing in Kazakhstan. I have to make a Borat reference. What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is a pretty straightforward review for what was a pretty straightforward game. We left a lot of people at home, which kind of makes sense when you think about how far they have to travel. And so because of that, we did get to see a lot of younger players today, but that also meant that the performance was kind of a hard one to review. To be perfectly honest, I don't know much about Astana or their pedigree in Europe, anything like that. I've not really heard of them before. So it's hard to really tell if this was a difficult match that we managed successfully or if this was an easy match that was made a bit more difficult by the fact that we were playing a lot of younger players. So in that regard, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for me to talk about individuals because, yeah, everybody played decent. At least. I mean, nobody was really bad. So it's not like I could sit here and go, oh, well, this guy was really, really good and this guy was really bad. And it kind of is difficult in a game like this because it is so changed. We're not used to seeing all of these young players. We're used to seeing a couple more of the backup players, the subs that we see coming off the bench in the Premier League. So when you have a team that is so young and does lack a lot of the more experienced players that we've seen in this competition before, I feel like sometimes that can affect the overall performance of everybody around. With that being said, I do think a lot of this overall performance is Maresca trying to give some of these guys a chance to prove themselves. You think about some of the young guys that started, most of the guys that were not the youngsters that were playing today, a lot of them are pushing to maybe get a chance to feature in the first team a little bit. I don't think anybody's going to get a starting place if they perform well today, but I think a lot of these guys, if they put in a good performance, it gives them a better chance of at least coming off the bench, or if somebody gets hurt, they're one of the first names in there. And I think from that metric, I can look at it and say who hurt themselves today and who won themselves a good chance to come in off the bench maybe. So first of all, for Jorgensen, I definitely think he did himself some good today. It's not necessarily the saves, because he wasn't really tested saves-wise, and the goal there's not really much he can do on. But I thought his work on the ball today, his footwork, definitely gave him a better chance of breaking in. I still don't really know what Maresca's trying to do with the goalkeeping situation. I'm not sure if he's just going with Sanchez because he has the Premier League experience and trying to keep Jorgensen out of the spotlight, but maybe give him some time to grow into it since he is a bit younger as well. But I definitely think that if we continue to see Sanchez make some of the mistakes that he has made recently, I do expect Jorgensen to step in soon because he's done well with the chances he's been given. He's made a lot of really good saves. I think he looks a lot more comfortable passing the ball. So overall, today was another good example of he's comfortable on the ball. He was given a couple of dangerous passes. There were a couple of moments where they were putting press on him, and I thought he looked very comfortable dealing with that pressure for the most part. Next up, going to the right side of defense, we have Achimpong. In my opinion, he's the one that did the most amount of good as far as raising his profile in the team, and a lot of that is down to the fact that obviously he's been out of it with the whole contract dispute, not really sure what's going on there. Was he going to sign? Was he not? Is he just wanting to leave? But ultimately, now that he has signed and he's gotten a chance to play, we saw him a couple of times earlier this season and he looked okay. Today, it looked like he was playing with a point to prove. He made some good defensive challenges, made some good passes, looked comfortable taking the ball down the field as well. So I think his overall performance today looked very comfortable for somebody who is a bit younger. And I think he really put in a good shout for he should be our backup option at right back. Since we know James is not going to feature for a little while, and Gusto is probably our main choice at right back, assuming, he fits into whatever system Maresca's trying to go with. But I think Achimpong today showed he should be the other option at right back. I think that's good for him, because especially after there was so much of a holdup with his contract, if after all of that time and all of the pushback that he was giving about wanting to start, if he goes out there today and he doesn't show why he deserves that spot, it looks even worse for him. But I thought today he did step up and he did do pretty well. Nothing spectacular, nothing that makes me go, oh, he needs to be starting soon. But he definitely showed he's got a lot of quality, and especially for somebody so young, that gets you excited because you want to see him a bit more. I think the other thing, too, is physically, I think he's very imposing as a defender. So it's good to see that somebody who has that kind of height and pace that he has also has a good touch on him as well. Next up, we got Tosin, and I feel like of all the players on the pitch, I feel like he moved the least as far as his profile. I don't think he made any big mistakes today. I don't think he really screwed up or had a lot of issues on the ball, but he also didn't really do much to say, yes, I need to be in this team. I need to be starting more. I need to be getting closer to that first team. He's just sort of there. He made some good defensive challenges here or there, but overall felt a little disorganized, I guess. And I've said this before about him. It feels like whenever he's in the team, there is a lack of organization back there. It feels like sometimes our defense is a little bit all over the place, and he should be the one that is controlling most of that. And it doesn't feel like he does. I feel like, once again, I'm disappointed because, in my opinion, outside of Colwill, we don't really have many good defensive options. And from what I saw from his few appearances earlier this season, I thought he was going to look pretty good. I thought he was going to be a good option, and yet Fofana kept taking that spot, and I kept wondering why. In the past few games, it feels like Tosin has started to drop off, as he's started to lose what I saw earlier this season. And it's disappointing because I wanted him to take that spot because he looks a lot more comfortable defensively. Disasi hurt his chances some more. Obviously, the goal he got against Southampton may have bumped him up a little bit, in Maresca's opinion, but I think today showed once again you can't really rely on him. His ball control is not really that good. His passing sometimes be a little scary. And defensively, he's just not really good at reading the game. I credit that goal that they got to both him and Vega. Vega, I thought, should have done a bit more, not letting the guy inside on his left foot. And Disasi just kind of almost dodged out of the way of the shot. Didn't feel like he really wanted to get in front of it. So both of them should have done a lot more for the goal. But overall, Disasi's performance was just not anywhere near what it should be if he wants to try to break into that first team anytime soon. Vega probably got bumped up in Maresca's opinion a little bit. I feel like there's still a lot of gaps in his game, though, that were not as apparent earlier this season. I think defensively he has some moments where he gets pulled out of position, and sometimes that's because he's stepping into the midfield as the inverted fullback. But it feels like he needs to have a bit more pace to get back in behind, because there was one moment in particular where I think he gave away the ball. He was a bit further forward, and they're breaking down the field, and he just kind of almost on a jog to get back. There are two guys in his position where he should be at left back, and he's just not really working hard to get back there. So I know that was just one moment, but there were a couple other moments similar to that where it felt like he was a little bit behind the play. Like either he's not reading it very well, or he just doesn't have the pace to get there and block the cross or get in front of the shot. And again, allowing the guy to cut inside on him to have the shot for the goal, he did it in the second half as well. Some of that was he was going to track the runner that George probably should have been tracking. But we saw what this guy could do in the first half. You don't want to let him cut inside when he's that close to the box, and yet lets him cut inside, have a shot, and then thankfully Jorgensen tips it behind for a goal. I think Vega on the ball looks fine. Defensively, I want a little bit more from him, though. I want to see a little bit more energy to get back behind and try to cut off a few more passes and crosses and shots as well. Into the midfield, Rak-Sakyi, I thought did okay. Probably bumped up his opinion a little bit. Wasn't anything phenomenal, maybe a little too weak, especially if you're thinking Premier League level. Probably a little too small for that. I think he's got to get a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit faster if he wants to really be kind of like a Caicedo type, because he doesn't have to be tall to be a bruiser in there. But it did feel like he was just a little too weak and a little too slow to keep up with the pace of the Premier League, because today there were a couple times where it felt like he was a little bit behind. So I think he works hard, though. Passing seems to be pretty comfortable for the most part. So it's one of those, he might be good in a couple of years, but definitely a little too early to say that he's ready to step anywhere near the first team picture right now. And then you got the two midfielders ahead of him. First of all, we'll talk about Chukwuemeka, because some people are saying that this is more so an audition period for him, trying to convince other teams why they should take him, because it does seem like he's going to leave in January. And if that is the case, I don't think today is going to get anybody jumping off of their seats to come get him. In second half, he looked a little bit better. He looked a little bit more dangerous. But when I think about where he was last season before his injury and where he is now, I feel like he's really fallen off a cliff. I don't see that same level of performance that we saw last season. He's doing okay against a team like Astana. That's not what I would expect. I would expect him to be dominant in that midfield, to constantly be putting the defense under pressure, constantly taking on people, keeping the ball comfortably, not giving it away. Passes should be nice and comfortable, knocking it around, finding good passes. He wasn't doing much of that. He did it sometimes, but it should be more consistent based on where he was last season. So I don't know if the injury has just really knocked off his levels, but it feels like he's not anywhere near that level of performer that we saw. And I do wonder if that's probably why he's not been around even the second team picture this season. But we'll see if it ends up happening in January, whether he's loaned out, whether he's sold, I don't know. But it does feel like he needs to get out, maybe get a little bit more football under his belt, just so we could see if he can grow into the player that I think a lot of us saw the potential of last season. And then the other one, Dewsbury-Hall, can you get much lower than he is on the pecking order as far as when you think about not the youngsters, everybody else in the senior team? I don't think he gets much lower than Dewsbury-Hall. And it's like today somehow he went even lower. It's crazy to think, but yeah, I'm shocked to see him this poor against a team like Astana. You know, he's been decent enough in the Conference League against a lot of these lower teams. I thought today, surely he'd be able to step up. But the amount of giveaways, his touch was awful today. His shots weren't that great. The only thing that he did well was crossing for the corner for Vega's goal. That's about it. I mean, even his defensive work rate, you would think he was brought in, I thought, similar to a Gallagher type, where he's just got a lot of energy. He works hard in the midfield. He can win the ball back for you. Even that wasn't very effective today. Felt like he was way behind the play and didn't really seem to have the pace to keep up. So today was, in my opinion, he was probably the worst performer when you think about the level of where he should be and the type of performance he put in. I think it was just far, far away from where he should be based on what he was brought in to be. On to the wings, first of all, Neto. Can't really say that Maresca's opinion of Neto went up or down today because it really did feel like he's not playing this weekend, so might as well use him today to be effective, to get the win. And yeah, first half, that's pretty much what he did. He was out there. He was dangerous. It didn't even really feel like he got out of first gear, though, and he was still able to take on defenders and cause some trouble. So, yeah, he was just sort of out there to do what he did. Get us a couple of goals, be effective on that right side, be dangerous, and there you go. You got what you asked for. George on the other side, I think probably did raise Maresca's opinion a little bit. I think the big problem for him is he's got to start finishing soon because he's doing a lot of the stuff up to the finish very well. But we've seen that before with Werner, with Mudryk. You can't just have the good build-up play. If you're going to get in those dangerous positions time and time and time again, you've got to finish. You've got to put it in the back of the net, or else you're just wasting chances. So obviously he's young, so there's that kind of grace period where he's still young, he's still learning. Hopefully he will start to finish soon, and we'll start to see him banging the goals in his cameo appearances. But definitely today there were several moments where I'm thinking that's got to be a goal. That's got to be finished. And he was just putting it either right at the keeper or right at the defender in front of him. I think his best chance was the one where he missed right outside the post. I think it was about maybe a foot outside. And it was well struck. It was curling. It was just barely missed that far post. That was probably his best chance for me because he was actually looking to miss everybody and hit it to the far post. Most of his other chances, it just felt like he was just shooting and it wasn't really placed anywhere. But the rest of his performance, though, I thought was really good. He looks very clever on the ball, quick feet. He can get in and out of a challenge real quickly. Passing looks pretty good too. So it's just that finishing he's got to work on. And once he gets that down, I think he's going to be a really good player for us. And then up top, Mark Guiu. Obviously, Maresca's trying to give him a bit more time, a bit more of a chance to prove himself. And I thought today he did okay. You know, first half, clearly getting himself 2 goals was good, and I'm sure he's going to get man of the match because of that. But I think the problem for me is the fact that after those 2 goals, I don't remember him doing much else. I think he had 2 more chances that I can remember that the keeper did pretty well to save. As far as his play, I just remember him less as the game went on. I feel like he just sort of faded out of the game, and then next time I remember seeing him is when he's coming off the pitch. So that is something that's definitely going to have to improve for him. We're going to need to see him throughout the match, not just for the first half, because he is a very hard worker and he does make a lot of really good runs. One of the chances I do remember him getting was ball in behind, and he does a good job of putting himself in between the ball and the defender, and letting the ball run through, and now he's in on goal, and then keeper makes a good save. So he does some of that well. The problem is, again, I saw a lot of that in the first half. I saw his energy, his desire to go win the ball in the first half, and I don't remember seeing any of him in the second half. I don't know if that's a stamina thing. I don't know if that's just he ran out of energy and he couldn't continue to do it throughout the entire match. And if so, hopefully that'll grow as he continues to play. But definitely want to see a little bit more from him, though, especially if we're not able to pick up a backup striker in January to sort of help Jackson out, since, again, I think Nkuku is a decent option, but he's not really a striker there. As far as the subs that came on, first of all, Ampa, I don't know how to pronounce most of these names, to be honest. He came in for Neto on the right side, probably just don't want to risk Neto getting hurt playing more than a half. A lot of energy, a lot of pace. Quality on the ball needs a lot of work, though. He reminds me, I remember playing with some guys that were very similar when I was growing up, who a lot of pace and energy, decent touch, but the passing and the shooting was not always there. And it felt like they didn't really have much control over themselves once they got into those dangerous areas. I know he's young, but it definitely felt like some of these kids, you can tell they do have decent touch. Passing looks pretty good. It just feels like they need to grow a little bit more, maybe get a bit stronger, a bit more quick. For Ampa, I feel like he's already got some of the strength, some of the quickness. He needs a better touch. He needs to have, I think, just a bit more control on the ball whenever he gets into those dangerous areas. I can't remember anything that was very effective in the final third. Passing, crossing, shooting, I don't remember him doing anything effective. A lot of them led to overhit crosses, out of bounds crosses, passing that was right to a defender. It wasn't great on that aspect, but again, young, has a chance to grow. I hope if he is going to feature a bit more, because I don't really know where a lot of these kids are in relation to on Maresca's scale or just anywhere near the first team. I don't know I figure George is probably pretty close to getting to the first team, or at least on the bench, based on the fact that he has featured a few times. At Chimpong, I kind of think the same way. But Ampa, obviously, this is the first time we've seen him this season. Who knows if he's anywhere near that picture. It might have just been, well, we need a right wing, you play there, so we'll put you out there. I believe next was Harvey Vale. He's one that has been around for a little bit. We've seen him pop up, I think, in the FA Cup, maybe last season or the season before. I want to say he's 19 or 20 now. He's not one of the young kids. And he's just been mostly playing with our youth team for the past couple of years, if I remember right. He's one that it does sort of feel like he might be on his way out soon, maybe on a loan, maybe looking to just sell one of our decent youngers, but I don't think he's going to be the Chelsea level based on what I've seen from him. He had a couple of decent moments today, but not really much to get me excited to see more of him. I know that's very harsh to say, but who knows? He might prove me wrong, and if so, I'll be happy for him. Next up was a young striker, Moika, I think. I again, gonna butcher a lot of these pronunciations more than likely. Looked like he had some good energy up top. I think he's only 17, so definitely a lot of room for him to grow. But he had one good moment where I think he turned the defender or got him behind. Decent little run for him, and unfortunately just couldn't apply the finish. Good, I think, block from the defender led to a corner. But yeah, had a little bit of a cameo. Thought he did some decent stuff in that time. Nothing spectacular, but a couple of good moments just to give him some confidence. And then Dyer went into the midfield, and I'm going to be honest, I don't know where he would typically play. He's very small, height-wise, and it looked just body build. He looks very small, and it doesn't look like he's very quick. I'm assuming he's also very young. I probably should look up everybody's ages just so I know for future reference. And for some of these guys, we know how Chelsea's youth system tends to be. We don't tend to see most of these guys. They'll pop in for an FA Cup match when they're young, and then next thing we know, they're being loaned out for 5 years until they're sold. That's typically how it goes. I don't know if the new system's going to work differently with the new board and all of that. Dyer for me, he came on for a little bit of a cameo, and yeah, he looked like a kid amongst a bunch of men. To have him in the defensive mid role is a little scary. It's funny because I predicted 3-2 today because I was concerned about our defense, And I was actually pretty close because they had a couple of chances near the end to make it 3-2. I think that's about it. Obviously, these matches are always very difficult to really get in and dig in and get a review because I like to talk about everybody, but when you get to players like Vale, like Moika, like Dyer, it's hard to really talk about their performance because they're younger. We don't typically see them in the first team, and we're playing a team like Astana. So it's some of them, they play well, they look pretty good in comparison to who we're playing. Some of them, they look a little off, they look a little too slow, a little too small. And it's hard to say, where does that put them on the scale of where the Premier League is? And some of them may also just, the nerves might be getting to them. I mean, to step into the first team picture and play in the Conference League as well. I mean, that's a big step going from the youth team at Chelsea to you're now playing in Europe. Yes, the third league in Europe, but it's still pretty big. You're going and playing in Kazakhstan, where it's -9 degrees Celsius. That's a rough way to get your first team appearance for Chelsea. So some of them may have just been dealing with that as well. And if so, I hope to see them improve in the next match that they do feature, if they do. But as it stands, we have won all of our games in the Conference League so far. We have Shamrock next week when we go home, so that will hopefully be a comfortable match. We'll probably see the likes of Nkuku and Felix, those guys, back again, since it's not going to be traveling to Kazakhstan. And it does put us in a very comfortable place as far as finishing in that top, I think, 8 to make sure that we're in the knockout rounds. And it's a good feeling to have. This is a competition that I think most of us Chelsea fans are sitting here going, we should win this. We should win this competition. I said it before. I can't remember which review it was now, but I feel like our 2 goals right now, win the Conference League, finish top 4. Those are the 2 goals. We should be pushing for both of those. One of which we're already comfortably doing. The other one feels pretty comfortable as well right now. So it's a good feeling to have. We're in a good place. I'm happy. Maresca's doing a great job still. A lot of these guys today, even if they were disappointing, like I said, with Chukwuemeka, with Dewsbury-Hall, with Disasi, I still feel like the overall performance today was still good enough. I just think for some of them, they should be pushing for more. They should be trying to do more to raise a better account of themselves based on where they have been recently. With all that being said, though, what were your thoughts on the game today? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea reviews. Also, check out the channel. We have a lot of reviews on here, as well as a couple of Let's Plays. Check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you all later. Peace out.